I'm in front of a sign that says end gun violence, which is like being in front of a sign that says, do you not want puppies to die? Nobody wants puppies to die, right? Like nobody wants gun violence. But I'm like, when did we let them take that term and let it be an anti-gun thing?
Battle Line podcast. You guys are going to love this interview. I know you'll see the length here. We went really long, but these guys at Walk the Talk America, I really think are doing an amazing service
Yeah.
that really has never been addressed before. And you'll hear me say that when I ran into Jay following SHOT Show, I was like, I can't believe I didn't know about a group doing this. So yeah, you're going to learn more about it. We do talk about mental health, as you can see from the title. And something that I think is tremendous for mental health is CBD. If you're suffering from depression, anxiety, there's studies that are really showing there is a link between CBD and helping those ailments. Also, guys coming back who are suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress, even if you're not a veteran and you have that in some way, CBD is really doing amazing things. But if you're someone getting drug tested, and I know some of that could show up, that's not all that they do. They also have mellow magnesium, which has no CBD in it. Great supplement for sleep. Most people are deficient in magnesium, and they also have their body butter, of course, which is a great blend of menthol and CBD. Whenever I have neck pain, back pain, it's something I use regularly. So check them out, guys. HelloNed.com/battleline or add the code battleline at checkout. That's HELLONED.com/battleline, HELLONED.com/battleline. So actually, before I booked the guys from Walk the Talk, we were speaking with Brooks Defense Solutions, who's doing really amazing things, and they have a tie-in with Walk the Talk America. So this was really a perfect tie-in. We talk all the time about Battle Line tactical classes, but you don't really do things often in Michigan. So if you're someone in Michigan, this is a great company. So Battle Line podcast today is sponsored by Brooks Defense Solutions LLC. Brooks Defense Solutions, located in Mulliken, Michigan, was founded as a result of the lack of preparedness during the COVID-19 pandemic, riots, and active shooter incidents, as well as the lack of specialized training, particularly with those with disabilities. Brooks Defense Solutions provides clients with practical and hands-on training that empowers them to confidently handle emergency situations, enhance their personal and professional safety, and develop a proactive approach towards security. This is accomplished through a comprehensive range of training programs and services to address the identified problem by offering training in firearms, real estate agent safety, and self-defense, first aid, CPR, AED, emergency preparedness guidance, active shooter prevention, and security. These training programs are designed to cater to individuals of all abilities, including those with disabilities, ensuring that everyone has access to the knowledge and skills necessary to protect themselves and others. Along with the training courses, Brooks Defense Solutions offers various clothing, training products, virtual advising through Minect and Smeeple, as well as partnered affiliated with multiple organizations. That includes, but isn't limited to, USCCA, Walk the Talk America, who we're about to talk to right now, Armed Lifestyle Magazine, Bone DRI, Next Level Training, Black Guns Matter, Blackout Coffee Company, Verda, Concealed Carry, and Guns and Guards. To learn more, register for classes, or make a purchase in the store, visit brooksdefense.net. Again, that's brooksdefense.net, as Brooks Defense Solutions is the solution to your defensive needs. So if you're in Michigan, check them out. And with that, let's get over to the guys from Walk the Talk America.
From Kansas City to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Switch is on. Motherfucker, I'm gonna shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battle Line Podcast.
The Switch is on, Battle Line Podcast. Really honored to be joined by two guys from Walk the Talk America, Michael Sedini and Jay Hood. So I have to tell you how I met Jay. And actually, you two don't know this, and it's kind of funny. We were on the plane back from SHOT Show. I had no idea who Jay was, didn't know he was coming back from SHOT Show. He didn't know I was coming back from SHOT Show. Pretty uneventful flight. Then halfway through the flight, you remember where I'm going with this, right? Halfway through the flight, you heard some like banging at the back of the plane. And before I could even realize what was going on, Jay, who's like a few seats ahead of me, like jumps up, runs to the back of the plane, is like ready to breach the door because we think someone's stuck in there. Luckily, everyone was okay, but I remember like all the staff of the plane went up to you and they were like, "Thank you so much for caring about like the other passengers." And we ended up talking, and I was like, "This is a good dude."
Yeah, it was a hell of a flight.
So was somebody stuck in the shitter? What happened? Is that
That's exactly
what
what happened. Somebody got stuck in the shitter. A young lady couldn't figure out how to open the door, and she has panic attacks often when she has to fly, and she was trying to relieve herself and got nervous and then couldn't figure out how to move the damn handle and was banging on the door for her life. And so to Ian's point, I just, no one was moving. And I was like, clearly something's going on.
Something's going on, yeah.
I
I
thought
was
you
just
were a
like-
federal air marshal or something, like the way that you just responded right away.
Just trying to do my job as I'm awake, so I can earn the opportunity to wake up again. That's all.
Yeah, do I
That's
know?
awesome.
I mean, I'd be thinking somebody's trying to like open that back rear hatch is where my mind would have gone. If
Fly
I
out.
mean, even if, but I can't hear shit. I put them earphones in on the plane, and unless I see it, I can't hear shit. But if I would, I'm like, holy shit, somebody's trying to breach the door. Oh my god, we're gonna have somebody flying out of this plane here in a second. Yeah, I don't.
So
like
he was more situationally aware than you would be, I guess. But
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I ain't gonna lie. Get on that plane, put my noise canceling headphones in, sit there, and it's like, okay, let's get this damn flight over with. And if it ain't in front of my face,
I'll say that like when we got off the plane, though, actually, as we were waiting to get off the plane, Jay and I just had a conversation, and you were like, "You were at SHOT Show," and I was like, "Yeah, you were." We had no idea. And the thing is, I feel like coming back from SHOT Show, you meet so many people. Usually, it's someone who's in manufacturing firearms, ammo, and it's kind of the same type of character you meet, to be honest, a lot of the time. But when I met you, and I know we'll get to Michael, I don't want to blow Michael off, but
we
when I met
got
you,
a story
and-
too, and Michael and I got a
For
story
sure.
that I forgot too. Yeah,
So when I met you and you were telling me about Walk the Talk America, I was like, wow, this is a resource that people need to hear about, because I really do feel like you guys are saving lives. And I could tell that you're very passionate about the work that you're doing. So before we get to Michael, actually, it'd be cool if you can kind of relay the same way that you did to me. What is Walk the Talk America?
Absolutely, Ian. Thank you. Let me just start with that for the privilege to be on this platform.
For sure,
I'm
man.
greatly appreciative
honored.
for your time as well as for Chris's time.
yeah, of course.
For me, Walk the Talk America is to the firearms community what advertisement and campaigns and marketing dollars have mirrored in the alcohol community around driving safely after having one too many drinks. The goal around everything that we do is to ensure that members of the 2A community have a safe, intentional, and private resource for their mental health needs. As we look at being bipartisan, and as we look at so many things around safety in the gun community, consisting of legislation and rules and laws and legislation and rules and laws, I believe our leadership team kind of got tired of dog and pony shows and people not acknowledging an omnipresent truth, which is the fact that people with guns can hurt themselves simply because they have lethal means. Well, what can we do to prevent that? How can we be intentional about ensuring that people that own firearms are okay with saying they're having a bad day without thinking that somebody's going to kick in their door, or they're going to be on some type of a list, or in some capacity they're involving government within their everyday lives? very specifically as we look at our veteran community and the amount of veterans that we lose every day. It's hypnotizing to think that we ask these individuals to go to war and to do whatever is necessary in order to win that fight, oftentimes relying and needing a firearm in order to do so, only for them to return to the States, be treated as second-class citizens. And the moment that they say they're not okay, we want to remove this friend that they've established, this friend that saved their life on a multitude of different occasions, merely because they're a person having a bad day with access to a firearm. So it was really, for me, the opportunity to join the team at Walk the Talk America was a testament to stop fucking around, and for us to put our money where our mouth is as a country and as a society, to ensure that members of this country have the resources that they need when having a bad day.
Well, and you know, for a lot of us, shooting is therapeutic. That's how we actually calm down. That's how we actually feel good getting outside. I mean, I live here in Kansas, and just being outside, whether I shoot 50 rounds or 100 rounds, I'm out. And I'm a town of 2,000 people. I'm out in like today, birds chirping, blue sky. They're actually the summer wheat's coming in, so the tractors are out. They're getting all the hay bales up, and it's beautiful. And you are right, because and I'll voice just what Jay said there. I have had a bad day where I went to the VA hospital and I said, here's my phone. I am checking myself in because I got to get away from all this. And the first thing they did is, do you have firearms? Yeah, I've got a lot. All right, you need to get them out of the house. So I'm going to lose them? Yeah, I got it. It's their rules, the VA. I'm checking myself in. I'm taking myself in on my own. But that was what you just said, and what hit home with me is like the first thing they worried about was, do I have firearms? It was, and the first thing they wanted to do was remove them. And I just got through telling you just now, everybody out there, that was how therapy was for me, was to go into the range and shooting. So my thing is, how do we protect that? Because that's already ingrained in, really, it's federal law, almost anything. And even if I am taking myself in, or veterans taking themselves in, or anybody, and they're voluntarily going into a mental health clinic, going in and saying, I need a few days off. Not that there's anything wrong with that, guys. I've done it myself. But how do we stop that, where it's the first thing is, I got to get all those guns out of the house? And are you guys able to fight that? Or is that just a fight we just are not going to be able to win? Or do we even want to win it? Do we want that to continue to be a law? Help me on that, man. What can you guys do to help me, just because I've had that experience personally?
Yeah, well, great inquiry there, Chris. I'll answer partially, and then I'll defer to Michael on this. For me, in my exposure and in my awareness of intentionality throughout the healthcare sphere, as well as with government, the first step is to create space for people to have an open heart and an open ear. If folks don't want to do different, they're not going to do different.
Yeah.
And when it comes to what I believe Walk the Talk America stands for, more than anything, it's accountability. But in order to create the framework, because if we think of the 2A community, we're tactical as shit, right? Down to knowing the springs associated with everything within our weapon.
Yeah.
There isn't a facet of precision that is lost in the firearm community. So just as I believe Walk the Talk America is asking community members to hold themselves accountable, to your point, Chris, having a bad day, be willing and be brave enough to speak on it. The same way we'd be willing and brave enough to defend our lives with our firearms.
Yeah.
I believe a lot of what we've done in the space of cultural competency and education within the healthcare sphere is a secret ingredient to that mix. We have to allow for government to be held accountable, but be culturally competent enough to do so. Same with our healthcare professionals and practitioners. Yeah. And let me then now defer to Michael and allow for Mike to kind of make reference to how, in fact, we're able to bridge that gap.
Yeah. And I always it was exciting for me to listen to you talk about Walk the Talk America, because usually it's just me doing it. And so it's always interesting to it's always interesting to see people's takes on how they explain it to people, because like I just came off the Stop the Stigma convention in Utah. I was talking to a crowd of 200 people about Walk Talk America. Most of them were everywhere from clinicians to healthcare providers and behavioral health people. But you know, to answer your question, Chris, is like, obviously there are some states where, you know, specifically like the state of New York that has the SAFE Act, which isn't so safe for gun owners, where you could get your firearms taken away from you. But building on what Jay was saying is we believe two steps, right? We get the firearms industry to get behind providing resources to gun owners who are in crisis without fear of consequence, right? They push those things. So for example, I'm just going to give you one example here, but we could just discuss so many things we do, like Arms Corps ammo, right? They put our free and anonymous mental health screenings on the side of all their ammo boxes. They also put it in a pamphlet in the firearms box itself. And there's Ruger and Bursa and High Point. I mean, there's so many companies that do it. Idea being, we don't want to catch you at stage 4. We actually don't want you to go in crisis, right? If you start thinking about your mental health at stage 1, then you're never even having to check yourself in.
Sure.
Right. And we believe that the firearms instructors, the firearms manufacturers, and the gun shops, right? They can push these resources that are just no-brainers for people that go, okay, well, maybe I'm not feeling so well. These are the ways that I'm going to mitigate those feelings, right? Second being the cultural competence courses, which is huge. Because in a time when we're all fighting, right? A time when we're so polarized, and if you look at behavioral health tends to be center left, and as you know, going to SHOT Show, like center right is usually the gun people. This is a really cool thing that brings mental health professionals to understand our world. So we developed a cultural competence course that we provide CEU credits to these mental health clinicians who want to learn about gun culture, but maybe in the past were a little too afraid to, or didn't know how. I mean, it didn't exist till we created it. And it's really awesome to kind of see the different levels of, you know, like people's fears of firearms and the culture. And then some clinicians are like, man, I used to ask that question and I never even cared. I was gun neutral. It's crazy that, you know, that there's a whole culture that is afraid of me, right? Like me, the clinician. And it's just like, yeah, well, that's why we got to come together and make people understand. Jay alluded to this story about like the soldier coming home. That's a true story. So when I was in 2019, I was on the prevents team for the White House for VA suicide. I was the only gun industry person there. It was really cool. But we had to give these like little mini TED Talks, right? And as soon as I was done, I said, the firearms industry can help, but you can't make us a villain anymore. And this gentleman got up and he was highly decorated. And he's like, at 18, you gave me a firearm. He told me to name it. He's like, you sent me overseas. You know, you made it part of my identity. He's like, you had me kill people with it. He's like, I come home and I don't know how I fit into society anymore. And he's like, and the first thing you want to do when I'm having trouble adjusting is take the thing you told me to name away from me. You know, and he's just like, listen to that guy. And it looked like I paid him. It looked like I literally. So I hope that answers your question. But the whole idea is with Walk the Talk America is we just want to get the firearms industry with the alcohol industry got with DUIs, where we're doing it ourselves and we're policing our own.
And that's important. And that's the military community, that's the law enforcement community, the first responders. We do police our own. And even in those subsets, the SEALs are supposed to police their own, the Rangers police their own, the SF police, and it's still like that. And so I went through my story. I do want to make sure that everybody out there, you all know that it did have a happy ending. Being in Nebraska, they did take him away, but as soon as I was left the VA mental health facility there in Omaha, and I think it was, the law was 6 months or something. I had to show that I was good. I got him back. So I don't want to villainize the VA, because they weren't, especially not in Omaha. They were tremendous. They took care of me. But I did want to point that out, that the first thing, and it is stereotypical, Michael, I believe, and also Jay, what you said is that the first thing they want to do was villainize the weapon that was therapeutic for me. And I would hate to be in a state that isn't like the Midwest, that isn't very veteran supportive, that isn't very law enforcement supportive, gun supportive, that would take those away and not let you have them back. And that was what I was hoping. Yeah, if there's a story like that, how do we fight that? Or most of the VA been pretty good, or in states been very good? Or have you had a horror story that? And I think the listeners should know that, if there is. I don't want to make this a negative, but I do want to know if there is the worst case scenario where they didn't get him back. But also, there has to be a responsibility. I mean, you guys are balancing a really hard thing. You have to have a responsibility too, where if somebody's going to be unsafe, you have to take those guns away from them. So I guess you're fighting a fight that really, I don't know, can you win it? And if not, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to, really how to ask a question that I don't even have an answer to.
No, I understand what you're saying because it's a delicate situation,
It is.
right? Me being a third generation firearms industry professional, I understand how the game works for the gun side. Like there's restriction is not an answer. So we fight against red flag laws. We try to point out the flaws in red flag laws.
Okay.
We're all about voluntary, like what you want to do. Like your story, bravo. Like you were self-aware enough to say, like, I can do 6 months without my firearm. So I'm going to do this process. I'm going to trust this process to get them back. Most firearms don't trust the process.
It was
Period.
hard. Don't tell me it was hard. I was worried. I know. Believe me, I was worried. I just go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want people to know.
No.
It was hard to
I'm just
trust.
saying, yeah. And I think that really, to me, that just tells the story of all different types of gun owners, right? Like we're not this monolithic like group that can't like think out of the box or say like, maybe it's time for me. But you know, we're trying to speak to every gun owner and just say, here are all the options. But yeah, we absolutely fight against that. Your question about the VA. I'm very happy with my relationship with the VA. I see them doing a lot of neat things. I see them really putting in effort. Now, I know there's probably a lot of veterans right now on this listening to this show that are like, what the hell is he talking about? But I can only give you my experience with the VA because I work hand in hand with them and I see the forward-thinking programs that they're trying to put forward in different states and on different levels of the VA. Now, having said that, I have my own podcast, right? And we have had people come on and literally tell horror stories, right? So to you know, that's what we want to do is like, especially with that, is expose the good side and the bad side. Because if we don't talk about both, we're never going to be able to fix it. But 2019, I went up there after the NASGW show, which is the National Shooting Association of Sporting Good Wholesale show, right? And a couple veterans all had found out that I was going up to the VA meeting in the White House, and they cornered me, and they were like, "Dude, you need to tell them this." Like they were so. I was excited too because now I'm coming with ammunition, right? I'm listening to some highly decorated people. You need to come and tell them this. You need to do that. You need to do that. So I get up there and I'm in the meetings, and I'm like telling the VA, "You got to stop this. You got to change this policy." And they're like, "Dude, we changed that policy 3 years ago." Right. And so this was my recommendation. I go, you got to start coming around SHOT Show. I said, what you have right now is you have a bunch of angry veterans who are scorned that aren't going to circle back to see if you change the policy that screwed them over. They're done with you. So they're telling other vets, don't go there. Don't do that. And you see what I'm saying? So I was like, you guys need a point man to hear the veterans in the 2A community, the Second Amendment community, the firearms industry, and then you need to take that person and come back. Guess what? Now the VA works hand in hand with NSSF, and they're at SHOT Show, right?
That's awesome.
That's smart.
You guys would know this better than I do, but from social media, I believe I've seen this, and I know that you guys are in touch with other groups who are doing good work. I believe that there are a bunch of like pro 2A groups that in a crisis, a veteran could bring their guns to and say, I don't feel safe, you know, from myself at the moment. I want you to hold these until I get better. And then that way someone can check into the VA and legitimately say, no, I don't have guns in the house. And they know that they're with a group that is pro 2A that is guaranteed to give them back when they're back in a better mind state, right? All right, I don't know the names off the top of my head, but do either of you guys know what I'm talking about?
Jay, I'm going to say Hold My Guns real quick.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Sarah, Sarah Albright. Yeah. Hold My Guns. Great organization, actually gets thrown in. I mean, no one talks about Walk Talk America or Hold My Guns without putting like we're together. We'll always be together. And then I want to say like the Armory Project. And then Jay, why don't you talk about what you're doing, the great work you're doing in Colorado with Emmy Betts?
Yeah, so Emmy Betts is a medical doctor at the University of Colorado Anschutz Medical Campus. and she's running the Firearms Injury Prevention Initiative there, and they've got some grant money from the Department of Defense right now that affords for them to work with several firearm retailers, essentially, based around 5 different military installations around the country.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you've got Buckley Space Force in Aurora,
Right.
Colorado.
Yep.
You've got Lejeune. We've got Newport News. We've got Minot in North Dakota, and then we've got Joint Base Lewis McChord out in Seattle.
Okay.
And so there was some intentional work there around, similarly to what Mike said, right? How can the community police community? How can a grassroots effort maintain visibility and awareness of citizens within community that need resources? And so essentially, that program mirrored from Erin Kelly and some work that she's done, who is also a member of that team. And also, let me shout out Jacqueline Clark of Bristol Cone in Lakewood, Colorado. She and Erin and Emmy and their team tried out and piloted a program called the Vet Store, very similar to what you just kind of made reference to, Chris. Where can someone go? Similar, Ian, where can someone go when in need? Working with firearm retail installations or working with firearm retailers, piloting that program and it being successful allowed for this effort to come to light called Pause to Protect, where Emmy and team were in a position to get the DOD on board. DOD's got some grant funding. Now these grant dollars are being allocated to these firearm retailers, 5 or 6 or 7 retailers around each of those military base installations that I just made reference to. And now they're in a position to give out more than just trigger locks. If it's an out-of-home storage need, they're also in a position to set up lockers at these firearm retail locations to where you don't have to worry about having a bunch of paperwork to sign. You've got a key to the locker. You walk in, out-of-home storage taken care of whenever is necessary, as long as that retail location is open for business hours. So that's one of a multitude of different things, as Mike mentioned, around grassroots, community, intentionality. How can we show up for us?
Are you guys seeing, because seeing with the doctors, the medical professionals, the healthcare professionals that you deal with, are you seeing that they are understanding that the guns are therapeutic for us, a lot of us, that we do need to shoot sometime, we do need to get out there? Or like you said, Michael, with the stereotypes where got to take their guns away, guns are bad, that they're not seeing, are you seeing minds being changed? It sounds like you are, Jay, with the people who you just mentioned, they all were medical professionals and they're willing to work with y'all. But is there still that negative stereotype that if guns are bad, and if you got one, you're going to take your own life? What are you guys seeing? Is the cultural change, because we need to change it, but is it changing towards the positive for a gun owner like myself that does need to go out there and plink some rounds, just like somebody going to the driving range? It's the same thing to me.
I'll take a crack and then I'll defer to Mike, because Mike's done a lot of incredible work with Zephyr Wellness and some other clinicians in the space. What I've seen is an awareness, right, and an evolution of sorts, and a maturity even, where you don't question the NASCAR guy as to whether or not he's going to get in his Corvette when he leaves the track and kill people, right? You don't question whether or not he's going to run red lights the moment he gets out of his uniform and his jumpsuit.
Yeah, it's a good comparison.
Right. And so in that space, we're creating, and to Mike's point, I'm holding the firearm manufacturers accountable. Fuck everybody else. When the firearm manufacturers of this world take a stand to say that they value their customer lifetime value differently, and they're willing to step up to the plate, i.e. a High Point, i.e. a Versa, to create space, that's when the medical professionals have no choice but to adopt and adapt, because they see then that the firearms community in its totality is taking this thing seriously. The more we do to step up and get ahead of it, the more we do in relation to allowing it to be normalized. For as long as the firearm manufacturers are in their ivory towers and at their $35,000 desks with their $10,000 ink pens, signing anything other than a check to Walk the Talk America, they're not helping the society as a whole grasp the importance of, yes, now your dentist will ask about certain things with relation to your mental wellness. Maybe it won't be with the goal of talking about guns specifically, but at least now it would be a check-in versus merely talking with you about your molars. And so to that end, Mike, what say you?
I love having Jay in meetings just because like he's that guy that will do that. And I'm like, say no to Jay. You're like, it's easy to say no to me.
And he's so well spoken. It's like, Jesus, man.
I know.
You're I don't want to argue with you because you won't just beat me down physically. You'll beat me down with your intellect. It's like, Jesus, man. No, go ahead.
No, but yeah, and to piggyback off what Jay said, we came up with this concept of a socially conscious 2A, right? Like you hear socially conscious and people always think like, oh, why are they talking to like woke people or something like that? But
what's those catchwords? It's those damn catchwords that I just wish they weren't catch. It's the same thing when you hear diversity. It should be a positive word, but it does to me too. It's like, oh shit, here we go. We're going down that freaking road again. But you're right. How do we change that? And that's not possible. Mike, so answer your question and maybe answer that one, man.
I'm taking those words back and using them for our industry, right? A socially conscious 2A, corporate social responsibility, right? And this is what the left loves about Walk the Talk America, because when I'm in front of those crowds and I start saying that stuff, like their head almost explodes.
You're using those buzzwords, man.
Yeah, I'm using their words, right? So they're like, what is he talking about? But so what I found, it's true though. You got to know your audience. You know what I mean? Like, so I talk totally different when I'm in front of like the firearms industry. I have to, but when I'm in front of a room full of 200 clinicians and people in behavioral health, here's the original question was, are you seeing this shift? And yes, we're seeing a shift. And I'll tell you what, because I'm going to tell a story about, I got to tell them about Aspen, Jay, because that was the biggest test of them all. When you walk into a room and you know you're about to blow their mind to show them like all the firearms companies, the Rugers, the Bursas, right? The Canon Safes, the Vera Safeties that are putting the Walk the Talk America Free and Anonymous Mental Health screenings on the side of the boxes. I've already won there because the expectation level of me being from the gun industry is so low that they don't think I'm, they're like, oh, what is this guy going to go up there and talk about prior from the cold dead hands? You know what I mean? And then I go up there and I'm like, here's things we're doing. We have Kids to Kings. We have this free resource. We have this resource. These are the companies that are doing this stuff. And what you find is most of these people are just frustrated because they're uninformed, right? Like they've been hit with the whole like ARs are the #1 killer, whatever, all the things, all the talking points that they have. And when I go up there, what I try to do is I try to show them all the things we're doing. And once you do that, they're leaning in, right? They're trying to get that knowledge. Like, what is he talking about? What is he saying? I can't wait to hear this, because they've never heard about it. Like we're not going to get that media coverage. We're just not. It's slow. It's happening, but they're not going to find it. Yeah, they're not going to find out. They're going to say, like, I heard Ruger was putting free and anonymous mental health screenings in all their boxes, right?
Jake Tapper's not going to mention that on the presidential debate. That's not, you're right. No,
yeah,
you're right.
I mean, so we're already put in that situation, but what I love about it is once it happens. So like the story I'm about to tell about the Aspen Institute of Health. I got an invite 2 years or last year to go up to Aspen, and they were like, hey, we want somebody from the gun industry to come up here. We've never had someone come up to the Aspen Institute. It's a festival. It's like a week-long thing. We want you to be a speaker, and we want you to be on a panel. So I was like, absolutely, I'd love to. And they were just like so happy that someone from the firearms industry was going to go up there, because most of the time we say no to those things because we feel like it's a buzzsaw, right? Yeah. And it was cool. I mean, I was in the same speaking tent as Chelsea Clinton, and Dr. Fauci was there. I was like, I had my badge. I'm in the speaker's tent, and I'm with like Brink from BlackRock, all these people, right? And I'm like, most of the people that my side would go crazy over, but it's just cool that I was invited to that party to be part of that. And they were super afraid for me. And like 12 different people came up to me and they're like, listen, this crowd, they're not really into guns. And we brought up the subject of guns last year and it really went sideways. And turns out like 6 months after that, I met the guy that they went sideways on, who brought up guns and was trying to be diplomatic about it. So he was like, I was the sacrificial lamb for you. You're welcome, because they killed me. Right. So I go down there, and they're like, God, you're really confident. I'm like, I'm actually more confident in front of like this type of crowd than I am my own, because my own has a very short fuse, right? When they hear guns and mental health, they think it's like mutually exclusive, and they think I'm going to blame the gun. They don't realize like I've armed more Americans than most people have in an entire room, which is crazy when you think about it, because all my work, how we met originally, Chris.
Oh yeah,
going to-
that was at the end. Or like, you keep going, but yeah, we could go on.
Yeah.
'Cause I would have think that you'd be more hammered by the gun community just because of the technical aspect of it. Of if you get a grainage wrong or a caliber wrong, you know how they're going to come and hammer you on that. Not necessarily the mental health. That's surprising me. That's actually sad. Because I want to hear at the NRA convention about mental health and guns, but maybe I'm a weird dude with that. I've been through, or maybe it's because I've
But
been
I think
through it
you're,
before.
yeah, and I think you're a veteran. I think the veterans, people that went into the military, I think that they've understood this a lot better than the general gun community as a whole, because there was two messages being sent. One, obviously veterans rallying around each other, taking care of each other, but then you had, and nobody ever looked at veterans and said like, why are they being pussies? Like, they didn't say that, right? Everybody respect. No, you automatically
you're
get
right.
that respect.
You're
But a
right.
lot of gun owners, because the NRA had that message of mental health people are bad. They're lurking around the corner. They're going to take your firearms. You know what I mean? And that was a move. I mean, it was a move, to get people to give them money and say like, I'm the only person who can help you. You got to trust everything I say.
Sure. Yeah, no.
So we're in Aspen, and the subject of red flag laws comes up, but I already got the audience. Like because I could tell like people are nodding when I'm talking. I'm talking about solutions, and the other two people on the panel were super pro red flag, and they were talking about how great red flag laws are and all their statistics. So it comes up to me, and they're like, what's your thoughts? And I'm like, I'm going to say something right now that the crowd's not going to like, but it's the God's honest truth. I'm like, red flag laws get people killed. And they're like, what? I could tell like everyone's like, what? And I'm like, I live in a world where if I had $1 for every time someone contacted Walk the Talk America and said, I want to go get help, but there's a red flag law in my state and I'm afraid to go get help, right? I'm not going to do it. I was like, I wouldn't have to ask you people for money. And I'm like, let me explain to you the unintentional consequences that red flag laws create for gun owners. They don't know about it because the crowd sees red flag laws as that worst case scenario, right? Just like you turning over your firearms in that time of crisis, that was a worst case scenario, but it was the best case scenario because you're emotionally intelligent and you knew and you trusted a system and it worked out. But so we're done with the panel. I'm in Aspen the next 2 days, like living off of, because they basically said, we only need you for the panel, but you're allowed to come up here. We'll pay for your hotel room. We'll pay for your food and drink. And so I'm walking around the campus and I'm attending all the events and going to all the different speakers. And so many people were like, hey man, I saw you speak the other night. Great job. And they're like, I just want to thank you. And I was like, oh, cool. And I would talk to everybody. And some people told me, they said like, I still hate guns, but you gave me something to think about. I never thought about the unintentional consequences of red flag laws. The way I always looked at it is you people wanted to just arm everybody. Right. And so now I'm like, okay, they're all misinformed, right? That's not what we have our own issues. So back to your original question. Yes. Like the more that Jay and I are getting invited to these places to talk about with the work of Walk the Talk America, we represent the gun industry, and we're opening people's minds to this, that there's reasons why we behave the way we do, and maybe we haven't communicated it the best way in the past, but now that we're coming with solutions that they could never even come up with.
Yeah.
Why was it a guy from the gun industry that came up with the idea to put free and anonymous mental health screenings in boxes of cards? It wasn't.
Is it because we care? They don't. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. Like we actually care, and not that they do, but guns are bad. So why should I care? I don't want to care about it. Well, guns are not bad, but I also care about losing human life because what you just saw, the unintentional consequences, and that's worse than any red flag law could ever be. So we're caring, and I know healthcare professionals care because I've been around. I just gave you my story, and they were wonderful with me. They were tremendous with me. And I've been around some who maybe didn't, but that's you win some, you lose some. That's everything in life. But it still is that day where that stereotype, and that's where you guys are coming in of caring. And I guess I shouldn't say off the cuff, but you guys do care. So how do we get them to care? Is that just by you going out and going to throwing yourselves to the wolves? And Jay, you the same thing, and being that minority on that panel of people that want to take guns, and you guys just, because I'm all fat. I mean, you guys have at it. I could never do it. No, go knock it, get those panels and get those minds changed. But what other ways can we do that and maybe make it proliferate even more? Or is it just going to do that like you said, grassroots, one step at a time, which is cool too. I get that. I get hard work pays off. How do we make it proliferate though? Is there a way to do it aside from doing the podcast? But this is a 2A heavy podcast. Not many from the gun grabbers are listening to Battle Line podcast. They'll see the name. So what do we do? What other things can we do to make it grow aside from just like a wildfire? I don't know.
To me, it's the same. It's going to be a slow
That's fine.
change, right? Right.
Okay.
And that's why this isn't sexy to politicians. I can't even get like, it's crazy because I talk to politicians. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on. As soon as like they're done talking to me, their head's going to explode because they can't use this to do something in the 4 years or the couple years that they're there, right? Like what we do is grassroots, and it takes time. You're like planting seeds, and it's a slow turn. But I would say, like, this is a 2A podcast or kind of geared towards 2A people, right? Right.
It is.
There's so much good that happens that nobody knows about. There's so much behind the scenes work, like the consulting that Walk Talk America does for a lot of suicide prevention and, the VA and the DOD. I mean, being out in those meetings I'm invited to those meetings all the time. I'm there. To me, that's how you do it, is you just keep chipping away at it and you're not afraid. I mean, I brought props. I'm like Carrot Top. I got like all these, but this is, everyone says that we can't get a fair shake in the media, right? This is, the USA Today. We had a full page write-up in the USA Today talking about what the gun industry is doing, to make change and stop it. And Jay is right. Like the gun industry, the more we step up to the plate, the better, and the more we can kick in the door and be like, hey, we're better at this than you. Like, hey, let me show you all the things that we're doing. Sit down for a second. Let me teach you something. You know what I mean? No, we have the space. Yeah. Like I said, we have the manufacturers, we have the firearms instructors, and we have the gun shops. Like, what more? They don't have access to that. They can only compel us to do things through legislation. And as long as that we're ahead of legislation, we have a spot at the table to argue against their feel-good legislation that's not going to do a damn thing to save one more life. I mean, we had the Surgeon General come out. Everybody freaked out. The Surgeon General came out yesterday and declared the public health emergency. Well, what people don't realize is all that's going to do is make researchers rich. Like that. I mean, they're not going to find anything in their research that they're going to be able to use against us. It's the same old stuff. We already know we already know that suicide is the main issue when it comes to firearms violence, right?
But they don't frame it that way, and they don't even frame the gang violence and stuff. They, as horrible as these mass shootings are, and it's like you can't downplay them. It is not what they make it out to be, because we know statistically, it's more people taking their own lives by far. But that's how they're going to frame it: is that we're all, anyone could be a victim of a mass shooting at any time, and as horrible as it is right now, and it's a problem that needs to be solved. They're making it worse by making the issue sound way bigger than it is right now.
100%. You're not by taking away Chris's guns, you're not solving crime in Chicago, right?
Well, that's illegal. That's illegal gun ownership. And how do you guys combat that? Because a lot of that is illegal gun ownership. When you talk about gang violence, well, nobody has this. Do you think that 9 mils is registered? It's not. What do we do? And do you guys have to battle? I mean, can you battle that still? Can you
Yes,
battle the
absolutely.
illegal gun? Well, how do, okay, well, tell me how you battle the illegal
we can't
gun ownership.
we can't battle the illegal gun ownership. But Jay, you want to talk a little bit about Kids of Kings?
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah,
to your point, Chris, you know, when we talk about the Surgeon General, right, making references and announcements, we have to realize once upon a time it was okay for a pregnant woman to smoke a cigarette on a plane.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay. It was
Yeah.
not only okay, but it was totally suggested. It was culturally normal for that to be the case. An airplane in the sky, a pregnant woman with a baby in her womb, about 7 months, could flame up a menthol and all is okay. In 2024, the Surgeon General is saying, hey, before you jump on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, know that this is addicting, right? That's the generation and the time that we're living in. Kids aren't on bikes outside anymore. They're not building sandcastles in the
You know what, though? I
backyard.
will say they are here. I always hear this from my boss, my other job. He's like, my kids are just on a tablet. I think it has a lot to do with parenting, man, because I've even talked to the parents across the street from me. Their kids are on trampolines, they're on the scooter, and they're like, yeah, my kids have tablets, but we make sure that they balance it out and they enjoy their outdoor time more. So yeah, and it all goes to education, but keep going.
Well, it goes to exactly what you mentioned, right? What happens outside of the home is a contingency around what happens in the home. And so when we talk about Chris, and as we discuss gang violence, I assure you, it's nobody in their 70s sagging their pants with bandanas ready to rob a liquor store, right? So how do we curb violence, right? How do we inspire these very same youth demographics to do something different other than be poor representatives of their community by doing things that are illegal and joining groups of folks that are just doing shit that isn't pertinent to being a better person.
Sure.
Well, Kids to Kings is an opportunity down in Atlanta, Georgia, where it originated and branched off into a couple of other cities. Devin Perkins is at the helm of doing some work with Kids to Kings, as he is the program manager for that. I'm program director, I apologize. How can
it's a Walk the Talk America program. Kids to Kings is a subsidiary of Walk
Gotcha.
the Talk America.
Nice.
So it's a question of how can we educate, enlighten, entice, and influence the same demographic of kids to step away from the glitz and the glamour of the Steven Seagal movies, right? Can we step away from what's the movie with the
Which one?
what's the new one? He had the Keanu Reeves movie.
Steven Seagal?
No, Keanu Reeves.
Oh,
John Wick.
John Wick.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't remember that either. Shit.
How can
Yeah.
we take the imagery and the allure and the sexiness of this John Wick film, and instead of promoting a space where kids are now influenced to just grab a gun and go shoot shit, they care about the mechanics, or they're intrigued by the industry, or that now they're actually interested in explosives and maybe want to take a job at the ATF. How can we create space for the curiosity and the boredom and the idle time and the excitement of guns and firearms industry as a whole, and introduce youth to that exact same truth with a different intentionality? So Kids to Kings is an opportunity for inner city youth as well as just citywide youth throughout its expansion to have exposure and intentional accountability around, one, their emotional intelligence, but then two, their familiarity and their awareness of firearms and the mechanics of firearms. So this is an opportunity where instead of, again, the glitz and the glamour, and now it's just an image in their head and they have no idea as to how to have some inroads as to being able to get their hands on a gun. Otherwise, they'd have to take that route of the streets and street violence, and somebody's uncle goes to steal something out of a car and now they've got a gun, but they've got no actual mechanics of it. Kids to Kings is a program that affords those very same youth demographics to have an intentional, supervised, instructional, educational space where not only are they now in a position to regulate their emotions differently, right? How can we ensure that nothing comes about from a fist fight by a way of being able to have an intentional conversation? But on the back end of that, let's keep that same allure and the brilliance of John Wick without the bloody gore. let's get you into a space where now you're in a position to understand the mechanics of firearm safety, the mechanics of firearms themselves. And now, since it's lethal means anyway, how can we ensure that the people that have access, because one day these 7-year-olds and these 8-year-olds and these 12-year-olds are going to be 21 and 25. How can we create space where there's a curriculum involved and there's an opportunity at the helm of that introduction, to your point, Ian, that helps circumvent the bullshit, but ingrains them in a space at home where now they are developing a certain type of discipline. Now they're developing a certain type of familiarity and a comfort. Now the allure of John Wick is still kind of cool, but after you've let off a few rounds and you went to go pew pew and plink plink, the enamor is kind of worn off, and now you kind of want to learn more about the industry in its entirety versus just the glitz and the glamour of the gore.
Hey, hope you're enjoying this interview with the guys from Walk the Talk America, Jay Hood and Michael Sedini. We have plenty more to talk about, as you'll hear, but not only does Fort Scott Munitions have the best home defense ammo, they now have a range ammo. You did a great commercial, which we've been showing when we talk about this, and it's the best range ammo out there.
Oh yeah, you guys, it's lead free, which a lot of ranges are going to that. They don't want lead on their ranges. It's bad for the environment, of course. And we at the 2A community are responsible. We got to be responsible to our outdoor ranges, but it also has the same capabilities as their hunting ammo, aside from maybe just a little less punch on it, but that's because it is range ammo. We want to get out there and use it to shoot targets and paper targets. Use that for your training, then use their regular ammo, TUI ammo, for your home defense and for your hunting. But guys, save a little money. Tremendous range ammo. I highly recommend it. And it's also lead free, which again, that's what you want. Most ranges are going to that. And if you come to battle line courses, that's the kind of range I have. They're all lead free. Check it out. Still the best ammo out there. And it is now the best range ammo out there as well.
Absolutely. And you're talking about saving money. Ever since we've been partnered with Fort Scott Munitions, they give our listeners a great discount when you go to FSM.com. Use the promo code BATTLELINE. You'll get 15% off. That's only for our listeners. So check it out. As simple as that, FSM.com. Go there now. Use the promo code BATTLELINE. And with that, let's get right back to this interview.
So it can progress to where they're training. They're coming out and actually coming through courses,
100%.
which is what you wanted to do, or it comes through where even there, where it can lead on even to a profession, whether it doesn't have to be the military or law enforcement, but man, how many people are looking for gun armors nowadays? I mean, there's not a lot of us. I'm not licensed to work, and that's a huge profession now. I mean, so that are you guys working towards that? So, because that's what as a kid I'd be looking for, and that's what honestly, that was what I loved about the military, is that I shot guns growing up. I grew up on a farm. I knew how to shoot a 22, but going to the military and I got to learn tactics. That's where it started to get fun, not just the shooting, the tactics and the moving. And oh my gosh, I'm getting paid for it. Granted, I wasn't getting paid shit until later when I made rank, but now there's so many other options out that when I was growing up, to being an armor, to building guns, to being a machinist. I mean, that's I think kids would look around. If you're doing that, man, freaking kudos, because you're basically building trades for them. Yeah,
we're doing it. We're doing it. Zeke Stout?
Yeah.
Okay, Zeke just donated a scholarship for gunsmithing for one of the kids from the Kids of Kings program out of Atlanta.
No way.
The pilot one. Yes.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's incredible.
Yeah, see, nobody knows about this stuff. I know it's not your fault, right? Like it's like that's the problem. That's why we're trying to get out this national exposure.
Ian needed you to have on the podcast. I mean, come on, it's Ian.
Ian, why'd you wait so long?
I actually did want to add, though, what Jay's saying, it really contradicts a lot of what you hear in the media because of precisely who you're targeting. Anytime you hear this stuff about gun owners brought up on mainstream media, MSNBC, CNN, and they talk about gun owners rallying, how many fucking times have you just heard on the TV where they go, oh, well, how would gun owners feel if it was all black gun owners lining up? And I talk to anybody in the gun community, and it's like they want to make this an inclusive space, and it's not a. Like go to NRA show. I see everything from like Hasidic Jews to black people to gay people. You know,
Keep it Jew,
it's
yeah.
way more inclusive than people
You,
think.
you even got a Mexican that speaks with a southern drawl on this show that likes guns. I mean, come on. That's what that's what killed. That's the stereotype again. That and I hate that shit, man. It's like, dude, we don't care. And when we were downrange, I used to tell people this because Boone, DB Benton, Boone, who was with me that night. I don't know if you ever met Boone. Boone's black. I'm Mexican. We had a couple white guys. Jack is actually Mexican. He's Spanish. It was like, dude, but I was telling you know what? The bullets don't care. They don't care who you are. They don't care what color. The gun doesn't care. It's what's here that matters when you're carrying. And so I wish we could get that stereotype away because that is a huge stereotype and it's completely wrong. And true gun owners, true tacticians, ones that love it, that are legal, that want this to proliferate. We never cared. We never cared ethnicity or gender. We're out there to have fun and shoot. It's like I said, it's like going to a driving range and just being with a bunch of people that you just love being around. I know I hijacked that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ian, I know
no,
there
it's
was
fine.
a question in there, but
No,
Yeah,
that
I gotta tell a quick story though about Kids to Kings, because it's in this vein, right? So I met Devin Perkins. He interviewed me at my booth at SHOT Show the year before I met you, Chris, or
Okay.
NRA, the NRA show the year before I met you.
yeah.
He comes up and he interviews me, does this whole thing about Walk Talk America, and at the very end of the interview, he goes, "What are you doing for the black community?" And I literally said, and it was funny because like foreshadowing years later, I go, "Nothing, because nobody needs another white hero. That blindside shit is played." Right. And I said, "You should do it and I'll help you." Right. And yeah, I didn't talk to him for a while. He came back to me and he said, "Hey, I got this idea. I want to run by you. And would you help me with it?" And I said, "Absolutely." But he came back with the idea, right? Like saying, because I said, "What am I going to do? Go to Compton and tell a bunch of kids, hey, man, like, be responsible." It's like, they're going to laugh me out of there. But Devin can go in there. Right. I'm not trying to die. No, but like, the trusted messenger in those communities of people have lived through it and been through it. And if Jay goes into a community and shows that he's a responsible gun owner and that the 2A is for everybody, the kids are going to listen. They're going to listen to that because they're going to say, wow, Kevin Dixie, who's one of the instructors of the program. Some of your listeners might know who Kevin Dixie is. He did one of the coolest things the other day. They had a class a couple weeks ago, sorry. And he put a wad of money down on the table and he was just like, "What is that?" And the kids were all like, "Oh, that's your wad. Like, that's your money." And then he put his firearm down, and responsibly, right? And he said, "Well, what is that?" And they're like, "That's your gun." And he said, "Yeah." He's like, "Most people from where we're from in the hood," he says, "when the police officer walks in the room, we pick it up and we run." He goes, "You know what I do when a cop comes in the room? Nothing, because it's mine. I earned both of those legally," right? And he said, "The firearm could be a tool of oppression if you use it the wrong way, but it could be a tool of empowerment if you use it the right way." Right? These kids have never had anyone talk to them like that. These kids have never had anyone give them a chance like that. They need that. All you need is somebody to give them a chance.
It is. It's a negative stereotype again. It really, it's a tool. It's an inanimate object.
Yeah.
I've had it on this. I've talked about guys, and Ann and I have talked about this with our guests about combat war and violence and being around it will bring out the best of a person. It will make that, or it will bring out the complete worst. And I think that's where we're trying. A lot of the media, because they like the red flag, they don't want the guns, is they're trying to bring out the worst. Where you guys are showing, no. Let's bring out the best. Let's be positive, and you're doing it right. I mean, everything you're saying, and maybe you're just good. You're like Tommy Boy's dad. You could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman. I don't know. Maybe you guys are just that good, but you're saying the stuff that everybody is really, that us people that can't speak well are feeling inside, and you're saying it in the right way. So you said it when you do go to the inner cities, or you do go to even not even the inner city, just go to some of the country, come out here,
Rural
some of the
areas, yeah.
areas we have where meth is just prevalent. But some of these kids are going into that route and doing the drug thing because they're finding no way out. And guess what? That gun is now an oppressive tool. It's or a method of defense, but it's still oppressive. Are you finding that you're making headway there? Because you're having to rebuild a whole bunch of motor neural pathways to rebuild a line of thinking that's been going down that rabbit hole of being a negative tool for years. Again, are you seeing headway there? And what? Tell me what's going on. I want to know, and because I want to see positives there.
So you know, I would love for you guys to one day have Devin Perkins on. You should, like,
Yeah.
Devin, because Devin is in it. He's in it. But yeah, you were seeing some positive role model stuff that's coming out with these kids. They're learning. They're going to start a shooting team, which is kind of cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And now, you know, Devin's really good at correcting the dumb shit, right? Like a lot of these kids learn their stuff from, like, you know, hip hop. I grew up listening to hip hop. I know you grew up to listening to DJ Quick.
We were listening to DJ Quick. I was listening to Kid Frost coming on over here, man. And I still listen. I love
Kid
that
Frost.
stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, man, Kid Frost is the shit. He's still, man. He's La Raza, man. Hispanic causing panic, man. I love that stuff still to this day.
Yeah, but so they, you know, for them to not get their instructions about, you know, firearm safety and responsible gun ownership from those things, and that's part of life. Like, I love that. I grew up listening to all that, but it's just like, that can't be the only way you learn about something, right? You need proper guidance, and he's given them that. So the pilot program's gone so well that we're going to now take the show on the road. We're going to go to Chicago, Miami, I think Houston. There's other places that we're going to start doing this, but you talk about the rural areas. The rural areas are a little bit different. When Walk the Talk America like kind of infiltrates a rural area, like, we help a lot of suicide prevention, because suicide is the #1 killer from firearms in rural areas. Because what happens is people don't really have access to help when they need it.
True.
And it's kind of a different lifestyle, right?
is,
So yeah, I mean, that's what I love about what we do. And it's like talking about my kid, right? Like, I founded this organization in 2018. But I truly believe that it's something for everybody. So, like, when someone, you know, the whole thing is like, somebody's got to do something, right? Like, okay, we're that something. Like, everything that you've heard before, like, that's not it. It doesn't work. You know, all the laws on the books, they're not working. It's going backwards, right? More laws is not going to mean that we're going to have less deaths. So we're the something, we're here now. So I think we're seeing improvement in every aspect when it comes to gun ownership for every demographic. In my opinion, I think it just makes sense. And where the proof is, to me, isn't necessarily our own people. It's not the gun people. Like, I like to hear, like, we love what you're doing. We love that you exist. I just love that we have that crossover appeal. Like, I just did this Stop the Stigma, you know, convention over in Salt Lake City. And as soon as I came off the stage, like 10 people came up to talk to me. And one of them was one of the ladies from Moms Demand Action. And she's like, we love what you do. And I'm like, of course you do. You know what I mean? But it's like, I'm not going to of course you do. You know what I'm saying? Just because, like, it's different and no one's ever heard of that before. But you know, when you have Brady and Moms Demand and people inviting you on their podcasts because they want to hear what you're talking about, I think that's validation for, we wanted an apolitical organization that just got shit done. If I could rename Walk the Talk America something else, I'd name it Walk fucking 3 feet over there. Because all these suicide prevention people, the VA, everybody else, like, they got to have meetings upon meetings upon meetings, and they're so consumed with data. And I'm not here to, like, shit on data. I get it, but don't let data get in the way of saving a life. Like, if the stuff we're doing makes sense, like, figure out that later. You know what I mean? But, like, people are always like, what's the data say about the suicide or the mental health screenings in the boxes of the guns? I don't know, man. They're free and anonymous. Because if I didn't make them free and anonymous, gun owners wouldn't do it. So I don't care about data. You know what I mean? I can give you anecdotal stories all day long. Like, what?
It's common sense, man. Hey, man, I did my probability and statistics. I did all my research analysis, get my master's degree. I get all, but if anything we learned from that is that, yeah, you can do math, you can do formulas, but it's always skewed, and you can skew shit with variables. And I don't like that. I don't like it either. I just, does it make sense? All right, then let's freaking do it. Let's go knock it out of the park. I'd like to hear maybe more about the gun teams, man, for the kids.
Real quick, before we dig into that, Chris, Mike.
Yeah, it's like, did we lose Jay again? What's going on?
No. Would you mind, Mike, just referencing the origin of Walk the Talk? Because I don't think we caught that in our.
Yeah.
What happened, by the way? We lost your camera, or?
No. I'm just repositioning again.
No, he's
Okay,
moving.
okay.
He's moving into God mode. That's where you just.
That is true. That is true.
God, it's like we're watching Navy SEAls and it's Bill Pullman up there, man. God, you got your ass. No, but yeah, you know, we didn't.
Wait. What was Jay asking you to do though?
The origination. We didn't really get into how Walk the Talk started at the beginning of the show. So, Mike, can you do
Okay.
that? Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
can't. I can fake it. I mean, I like, well, in 1960, you know, Lyndon Johnson. I don't know when he was go ahead, man. But
So-
yeah,
so,
how did it
Yeah.
start?
So I owned Eagle Imports, which that's how we met. You actually,
Yeah, we
yeah.
talked about it offline. Yeah, we just didn't
Yep.
get it on camera. Yeah. Gotcha.
Talking Lead at NRA was broadcasting out of my booth, and you were a guest, and Lefty had me as a co-host on the show. That's our first introduction to each
Yeah,
other, and you
Lefty,
were awesome. You were hysterical, which is a breath of
Thank
fresh
you.
air, because like gun people sometimes are just like so tactical, and like you were
Just stuffy, man. It's like your
Yeah.
their anals are like this tight. And they're like just go. I get you, man. No, I had fun.
No, but,
that was a fun one.
So I owned one of the largest importers in the United States. We used to import like for the listening audience, when you had a firearm and let's say you made a gun in Colombia and you didn't have an American presence, but you wanted to break into the American market, you found someone like Eagle Imports, and you basically we bought the guns from you. We handled your customer service, your warranty, all your representation in the United States at SHOT Show, NRA. You know, top to bottom, we made it easy for you. So I'm third generation. I got my job through nepotism, which is an awesome way to do it. Like I recommend any of the listeners, if your family owns a gun company, just work there. But you know, for me, it was like always noticing that the firearms industry in itself didn't address the negative outcomes of firearms. Like we didn't talk about suicide. And if you got someone to talk about the negative outcomes, they were always like, it was suicide and the rest of it was damn gangbangers. Like, you know, it's like that type of thing. And I couldn't understand, like, yeah, the God's back. I couldn't understand why we didn't lean into those things, because we hold our first responders so near and dear to our hearts, and our combat vets and our active duty military, right? And we were watching them drop like flies, like literally like at SHOT Show every year. It seemed like one person that used to hang out at my booth wasn't there the next year, and we didn't know why. And then we found out later, oh, you didn't hear about Steve? Like Steve took his life with a firearm. Quiet. Like that movie Twister, right? Talking about F5. Remember that? Like, don't talk about it. So in 2009, the president of my company took his own life with one of our firearms.
Wow.
Which was a complete shock, because he's one of the ones that he wasn't originally from the gun industry. So we would have these honest conversations about the gun industry, because he wouldn't have considered himself like a gun person, but he was a businessman. And so it was really shocking to me, because we had those discussions, but his funeral was like a who's who of the firearms industry. And once we put him in the ground, nobody talked about it. It didn't go in any blogs or any articles. It meant no mentions at like the NASGW banquet or the NSSF banquet, nothing like that. And it was just one of those weird things. So suicide was a taboo subject for gun owners, because those type of things were used against us. So we didn't like to talk about them, right? We didn't like to focus on it. Well, in 2018, I was on a business trip with my national sales manager, Rafael Devalle, who now runs Versa USA. And it was really funny, because I'm not gonna lie, we were hammered. Like we were 11 vodka sodas deep. And we were out in this restaurant in New Orleans. We'd just come from Lipsy's, which is a big gun distributor. And we were celebrating, and we met this lady at a bar, and they had read the same book or something like that. And she was there by herself. And we went to sit, and we had an open seat. So I said, oh, why don't you invite the lady back here? She was so cool. Like, so now she's sitting at a table with two gun people. So she's asking all kinds of questions about the firearms industry. And she didn't have a dog in a fight. Like she didn't care, but she's like, what do you do during a mass shooting? And I said, everybody blames us. We blame mental health. And then nothing ever happens. And she asked the question, and she's like, well, I get that you can't restrict people's firearms access. And, because we were telling her about how we feel about firearms. And she's like, but how can you work with the mental health community on the things that you agree upon that might help gun owners?
And like the
You
light
know?
bulb, you got the light bulb.
Oh my God, it's like a light, but yeah. And like Raphael like literally leans up because we're that drunk, and he's just like, yeah, you should give $1 a gun to mental health. Like, you know, blanket statement, but I became obsessed with it. And that's the origin story of the night that the concept came into play. And then there was a process of like finding a mental health organization that was going to be gun neutral. I didn't even know if that existed. You know, I ended up finding Mental Health America. Then I had to go get a board of directors. If you look at the Walk the Talk, if there's anyone that's suspicious of me right now, like listening to this, like I still don't know, just look at my board of directors. My board of directors is made up of individuals that would never jeopardize the rights of firearms, right? Like we have some of the heavy hitters of the firearms industry that kind of back me, but they backed me and they were kind of like, go do your thing. We think we understand what you're doing. But you know, so that's the origin story. The origin story just came off of a random question.
It's awesome, man, because I feel like when you see what the NRA does, they truthfully, and it's not to like talk bad about them, but they never address this stuff, man. Anytime you get mail from the NRA, it's just your rights are under attack. You know, they don't address any of the stuff you guys are doing. And actually, I wanted to ask Jay, I think you and I even might have spoken about this when we got off the plane. Do you think part of the problem of why gun owners are so stigmatized is because it is such an in your face attitude of, you know, the majority of people who see at SHOT Show? So like sometimes like when we were talking about being inclusive, sometimes totally turning people off. Like I know people could see this and just be like, "Oh, it's stupid. It's politically incorrect. It makes you laugh." But I remember like seeing people in T-shirts at SHOT Show that said the ATF is gay on the back. And yeah, we could laugh about it, but I want gay people to be gun owners, black people, and like, do you think that that type of shit just kind of like stigmatizes us and these guys are just assholes, you know, and excludes people from being a part of this community?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't even want to say it's an indirect consequence because we're grown as shit. So in some capacities, we know exactly what we're doing. But then in the other breath and in the other space, calling a spade, the firearms community wasn't always diverse, right? Trans rights weren't always advocated for. Having a Hispanic with a Southern drawl wasn't always the thing when it came to an NRA show. So that the omnipresent truth is, as the 2A community has evolved, I think membership has evolved. And as we've matured, both individually and from a living on earth and having gray hairs type of maturity, I think more and more we're recognizing the importance of being, I keep referencing the word intentional, but that's it. I think there is more space at the table, because folks that are at the table are learning that you're missing a market segment by not pulling out a chair. And if you're unwilling to do so, not only are you missing out on market share, but there's a prerogative and there's a perspective and there's a truth to folks that are members of other communities. And you're equally not allowing a more robust and a more fortified product.
Yeah.
If you don't have the opportunity to have the voices of other communities echoed and acknowledged in the 2A space.
No, you do. As an instructor owning my own company, Battle Line, you know, I can see that, and I can see how I market things, and you know, also being Hispanic, being Mexican, and honestly being funny, Michael, not being that I'm a badass too, I can shoot and everything. You know, I do see that my classes. I'm in the Midwest. Are they primarily white? Yeah, I'm in freaking Kansas, man, in the rural area. Of course I am. Yeah. Do I get a lot of women? Yeah, I get a lot of women. Do I get a lot of people from the inner city come in Kansas City, and they come to my course specifically? One of them came because they heard our. I remember that. He said, "You listen to DJ." I know I'm being stereotypical, but it was like, dude, it was something. Whether it was that or not, it was something like, you know what? I'm going to give this dude a try because he's not the stereotypical 2A instructor that wears his "Don't Tread on Me" shirt and says, come and take it. I'm out there goofing, and we're having a good time. And I think as instructors, and I agree with you, Jay, we have to change. We have to do things differently and be more open. And I say, I hate using the word inclusive. Just be funny, be humble,
Be human.
Exactly. Thank you. Be human. And for those and for my classes, when everybody comes out, though, at the end of the day, it's just everybody's we're all just having a good time. It makes no gosh dang difference what color you are, what gender you are, what ethnicity you are, what religion you are. We don't care. We're just out there enjoying themselves. And first time shooters after a course, they're hooked. They're like, and I love it, man. But you guys are the ones that really protect my ability to continue to do that, because I see 10 people, maybe 5 people. I'm not seeing a plethora of people, and nobody's coming out to Midwest Kansas from the East Coast or the media to come train with me to see how I am, or they have a stereotypical view of me already because of what happened with Benghazi. And I hate the left because Hillary left us behind. No, I hate whoever left us behind. I don't care if you're right or left. So, I'm with you, man. We do have to open it up. But do I see it growing and it's not just white? No, it's not. I mean, it's not just that anymore. So we we obviously are doing something right, and we just need to continue. And I said with Jay and Michael, you guys out there pushing this stuff and doing a great job saying those things that, Jay, you could get attacked for that kind of stuff. A hardcore 2A NRA guy could be like, what? Trans? I'm not having no. Do you want to come shoot? Come on, man.
And it's fun. People would be
care.
surprised because you might be like, there's no one in that demographic who shoots, but you go on Instagram, man, there's like, I think anybody who's into the political sphere of YouTube, Blair White, right? I feel like everybody knows Blair White. She, if you want to call her she, biological male, but owns a fucking ton of guns. She lives in Texas. I think there's people in all of these demos who shoot that you may be surprised by, and you may disagree with them on everything else,
But I want to say on the other foot, though, and I know that if you are falling to whatever you think you are, label yourself are. If you're not coming out to shoot with somebody like myself because you think I'm going to be a stereotypical 2A instructor, that's on you too. It's got to go both ways. You've got to have open on both sides. And when neither side's willing to go anywhere, it's not going to go anywhere. When one side is and the other one is, it's not going to go anywhere. They both have to. And I have to say that doesn't happen very often. It doesn't.
The great thing about the chess game I'm in now, right? Because I got to walk in both worlds. So if someone doesn't understand me, because I'm a middle-aged white dude, right? You know what I'm saying? No, it's just like, okay, like there could be a case. I mean, obviously I'm a little different, but like there could be a case where people go, he's just an average, everyday white, middle-aged white dude.
And to be honest, they're going to see your tats and they'll be like, oh,
that's
shit,
right.
Valhalla, here we go, Valhalla all over.
Yeah,
again,
exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But so the way I look at it is like some of the organizations out there that you're like mentioning, Ian, like you were kind of flying close to the different organizations: Liberal Gun Club, Liberal Gun Owners, Pink Swords, Pink Pistols.
I mean, it is Pink Pistols, right? I've heard.
Yeah.
I've heard.
Armed Equality, right? There are movements, these groups. Where these groups have been so beneficial to me is when I go into a meeting and I'm working with the left on things and trying to make them understand things. I bring these groups into those rooms because that's the messenger right there.
Yeah.
I can't bring Uncle Ted Nugent in there. You know what I mean? Like
it's the best example too. It really is.
Yeah. So I'm bringing Bobart into that room, right? Like,
by the way, we've had him on the podcast. Like he's a great guy.
No,
but when you talk about inclusive,
friend,
he's the antonym of that. Yeah.
Right. So these groups have actually gotten through to some of the people that I needed to get through. I give a story about Kevin Dixie one time. I had Lara Smith from Liberal Gun Club. So the Liberal Gun Club, if you didn't know any better and you showed up to their annual event, which I've been a keynote speaker at once, if you just open your eyes and you just did all the exercises, you'd be like, I'm at a typical gun, gathering. Like until you start talking politics, and then you see that they start checking off the left boxes. But they're the best people out there as your representative. They're the ones that should be sent into every every senator, everybody that's in Congress, like they right now, especially when it's a different administration, like those are the ones to send, because they'll get people out of their comfort zone. But Kevin Dixie, one time I brought him in, and he said one of the coolest things. He was talking to one of the ladies I couldn't get her to see in Nevada. I couldn't get her to see my way about red flag laws and transfer laws, and which I think sometimes are barrier to entries for getting people to help. And we don't want to make good Samaritans, especially with transfer laws, we don't want to make good Samaritans criminals because they did the right thing by taking someone's gun out of the house, and you're not supposed to do that, right? But I brought Kevin Dixie in, and he gave this crazy speech, and I remember at the end he goes, "Stop acting like you care about children. You only care about Parkland children. You don't care about children when they look like my son. You only care about Parkland children," right? And it hit this lady's blind spot, and she started crying, but crying in a good way. And she was just like, "I'm sorry. You're right." Right. Because they only think of Parkland kids, right? Like everything is like Parkland, and that's tragedy. I'm not downplaying that at all, but that doesn't happen on the reg, right? But when you look at like Kevin's son and probably stuff that Jay had to worry about growing up, that's real. And that happens every day. And people forget about that. And nobody has an answer for that type of violence. So they just ignore it. Right. And liberals tend to think that they're doing well, like they're doing good things. And I get it. They come from a good place, but they have a lot of blind spots that need to be pointed out in a manner, with love and dignity and everything to make them feel it, to make them understand. And that's where these groups come in for me, because they can convey that message, right? Like Lara Smith is a middle-aged white woman, but she's the vice president of the Liberal Gun Club. But when this other middle-aged white woman is talking to her, it's a mirror, except Lara's completely pro-gun. You know what I mean? And she explains why some of these gun laws are racist to her. And I love that, right? Because I'm like, I don't have to say it. I'll just sit right here and watch
No,
it.
you're right. Yeah.
And by
like,
the way, I was going to say, part of the problem too with the politicians is I think even the politicians who are pro 2A actually have nothing to do with this community oftentimes, and it's just like a voting block for them. And the thing that proved that to me more than anything, did you guys see, because he's very anti-gun obviously, but did you see that thing Sacha Baron Cohen, the guy who played Borat, did when he dressed up as an IDF guy, and he got Republican members of Congress to say the stupidest fucking things that as a gun owner, I was like, man, this is embarrassing. Like they think we're all idiots. Because I just remember the stuff where Sacha Baron Cohen went up to that Congressman Joe Walsh, and he goes, and I'll do my best Israeli accent, but he was like, the NRA is trying to arm teachers in the schools. This is crazy. We need to be arming the kids. We need to be arming the children. And somehow he gets Joe Walsh to make like a PSA that he's like, we need to have kindergartners armed in schools. And I'm like, dude, this is a congressman and you got duped by Borat. And it's like, man, this is why things are not being solved. Because these are the people representing us as pro 2A, A-rated NRA congressmen, when they obviously are not a part of this community, and it's just a voting block for them, and they just care about getting reelected.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean,
did you watch that? It was embarrassing to watch.
It was hysterical.
Hysterical, but scary, man. It was scary that he was able to dupe these people.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, one of my board members is this guy named Rob Pincus, and they actually tried to get Rob, and it failed. Like, so just so everyone knows, so the listeners know, for everybody they got, there were people that were like, fuck you.
Yeah, and that obviously isn't going to make the cut, because the whole agenda of the film was gun owners are idiots, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I wanted to ask you about too was, and I'm sure Chris has some other things.
I got one more thing. That's it.
Okay, cool.
We're keeping you guys long. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
Hey man, this has been a joy, man. I cleared my schedule, so
I appreciate it, man. But yeah, what I was going to ask you about, Chris really early on in the show said that what you guys are doing is a balancing act. And I think one of the things is when people hear about mental health screenings for gun owners, if someone sees a therapist, there needs to be a huge difference between how something is handled when someone goes into a therapist and maybe says, hey, I feel like I'm violent sometimes. I have anger issues. And depending on that therapist's politics, if they hear there's guns in the house, they might be ready to call 911. And someone who is saying I'm suicidal or I'm thinking of doing harm to others. Those are two totally different things. But when we hear about like addressing mental health, it all gets put
It
into the
just gets,
same
yeah.
pile.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we have on our website, and we're hoping to grow this part of the website. But when mental health clinicians come through our cultural competence course, we give them a certificate for their CEUs, which is their continuing education. Everybody that works in behavioral health has to like get a certain amount of CEUs every year to continue to get their license. But we ask them, would they want to be listed as a Pro 2A clinician? Because we get a lot of calls from people who are saying, I want to talk to somebody, but I want to talk to somebody that knows about guns, right? And believe it or not, there's just a ton of clinicians out there that don't even know that we exist, that are like, yeah, I'm pro gun. I'm not going to sit there and be judgmental, but part of the course, and your listeners can actually watch that course if they want to. We have a paid version, which is the exact same as the free version. But we do that because some people just want the course, but they don't want to get the CEU credits. The paid version gets you the CEU credits, but we have a lot of, I'm sure they're just making sure, you know, Chris, there's a lot of this course that you could teach, right? Like you could be like, I could have taught that part, right? Because we break down ARs, we break down like different calibers. We really explain things, but
Good.
that's the whole point of the educational piece of it, is making people understand that, you know, if a gun owner says, hey, I went to the range this morning because I had anxiety, I shot off 1,000 rounds, they're not picking up a bat phone to the government, which most likely they don't have, right? So there's a back and forth to this, just like Chris was talking about earlier. Like it goes both ways. There's a lot of misinformation about what clinicians can and cannot do for gun owners, right? Like in the state of Nevada, for example, and we have a clinician, a Pro 2A clinician that's on our board of directors named Jake Wiskershin, that does a lot to demystify the counseling process, to explain to people what they can do. And it's really funny because when we take people through the course, watching the mental gymnastics of a lot of clinicians who are like, I don't even know how I could take somebody's guns. You really have to put your license on the line in many states to make that call. I mean, you have to be saying something to the effect of, I am going to leave this office right now and hurt somebody, you know, and that's still a judgment call. But it is a concern. And that's why we got to keep talking to each other, not at each other, because we have to make people understand that this is the thing and this is a fear. And that it shouldn't be all lumped together, right? You got to have nuance in this thing. You know, just because, and also too, who you were, you know, 7 years ago is probably not who you are today. Everything is temporary, right? And that's the most important
that's
thing.
such a big thing, man. I think everybody, when they're going through a crisis, they think they're going to feel like that forever.
You don't.
Right.
No, you don't.
Right. And catching them early.
I guess they're not, since that, I got two questions now. First, are you guys, since off of this, it's important to not lump everything together. We need to start separating different gun, whether you know, it's a suicide or murder demographic. Are you guys doing that so everything is not just lumped in? This is the fatalities of guns. Well, I want to know why, because there were different, not just because it's a gun. Did he take his own life? You know, or was this something, was it illegally owned or legally owned? I mean, that's important, because when you're lumping, because they're trying to lump it together to make us legal gun owners part of the problem, which I don't think we are. I mean, in most aspects, but yeah, can you guys get that separated so we can get the different demographics and the different reasons of what and just what happened, not just these are all the gun deaths. Okay,
Yeah.
what's behind it? Tell me more. I want to know more.
I'm going to share a story with you that I think you'll find fascinating. So I got a call. There was a shooting in San Jose, mass shooting. It was at like a rail yard. And this is a few years ago. And I got a call from San Jose State, and they were like, hey, we see a lot of the work you're doing. We want to invite you up to speak at this event we're throwing about gun violence. And I said, okay, who's put on the event? And she said, well, it would be you, Moms Demand Action, and our student VA group. Right. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I'm like, you really want to pay me to show up and speak at this event? And they're like, yeah, we want to bring you up here. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Right. And I wasn't thinking at the time. So when I like started to promote the flyer and everything like that, there's a lot of gun people that got angry at me because they were like, why is he going up there and he's on the same flyer as a Moms and Man's action person? So like in my mind, I was like, why wouldn't I go up there? I'm going to be me when I'm up there. I'm literally going to bring the focus back to suicide prevention because I know what they were angling at. They were, and they did, they had speakers up there that were talking about the evil AR, you know, and I'm thinking in my head, wait till I tell the crowd that hands and feet kill more people than ARs a year, right? Like, so that was an opportunity and they let me speak first. So now I know in my head, I'm speaking first. They're letting me kick off the show and I'm sitting in front of a sea of students. Most of these kids, I'm in front of a sign that says end gun violence, which is like being in front of a sign that says, do you not want puppies to die? Nobody wants puppies to die, right? Like nobody wants gun violence, but I'm like, when did we let them take that term and let it be an anti-gun thing? Like, I'm like, this is silly. So I'm like, gun violence, right? And I started off and I said, who here knows about the Las Vegas, mass shooting, October 1? And the crowd's like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, we lost 59 people that day. And I was like, which is horrible. It was the worst mass shooting. It happened right down the street from my house, right? Because I live right next to Mandalay Bay. And I said, we have a mass shooting every day that nobody talks about. I said, we lose. And at the time, it was like 67 people a day to suicide by firearm. And I was like, think about that. We have a Mandalay Bay shooting every single day that the media doesn't cover because it doesn't sell ad space. They let me say this and kick off the show, right? So now I got the whole crowd thinking about that. And I could see their faces. They were all shocked. Like, wait a minute, that many people kill themselves a day by using a firearm? And it's true. And now we're in the 70s, by the way, like cut to a few years later, right? But it's bringing people's focus back to what's important. And what was great is I come off stage and now I'm getting swarmed by a bunch of kids that want to talk to me. These are kids that were probably gun neutral, right? These are kids that just don't want to see people die. They aren't angry at guns, but I'm not letting Moms Demand or anybody else control the narrative now. I've already now separated gun violence into a different bucket because you can't, like I said, take away your guys' guns and solve crime, homicide in Chicago. You're not taking away your guns isn't even solving suicide, right? And I need people to understand that we're intellectually dishonest when we lump it all together and we don't separate it. It's literally going to get people killed, right? So my whole thing is I got to sit there and get all these opportunities. If Mom Demand wants me to speak, I'm going to go speak. And the San Jose Mercury, which is their newspaper, the reporter came out with an article like 3 days later about the event. And it was all Walk Talk America and bringing this focus back to suicide prevention. You know what? The Moms Demand Action lady, he was like, I'm glad we brought him here because he brought attention to something that we generally ignore. But what was she gonna say? She had to say it because I said it to the crowd. You know what I mean? So that's how you do it. You keep showing up, you keep going into the buzzsaws and you keep just bringing reason and logic into every conversation and you're going to change people's mind. I'm not trying to talk to the staunch person who wants to ban all guns out there. I'm trying to get the majority of the people who are gun neutral to understand where we're coming from. Because if we get them to rethink about the way they feel about firearms and understand that this has got a lot of nuance, then we can start actually coming up with solutions that might help. I always tell people all the time when people, Mike, privately, we're having a drink at the bar. Like, how do you really feel about ARs? Like, should they be banned? Absolutely not. Why? Banning ARs is like me coming up to you and saying, I found a way to stop drunk driving. And you go, okay, tell me. And I go, we're going to ban red sports cars. And I go, what would you say to me? And they go, I would say you're crazy. And I would say, that's how we feel when you say it to us. Because
it's ludicrous. I mean, Ian and I have said it'd be outstanding to never have guns. Nobody, them never to be. Yeah, great utopian society, no guns anywhere ever. It's not going to happen. It's the cat's out of the bag. It's
the genie's out of the bottle, baby.
It's gone. So, but we can teach responsibility. And I guess I keep saying I have one question, but then you say something, I'm like, gosh, I got another question. When you say stuff like that at speaking events, and Jay, when you say stuff like that at the events that you do as well, do you find that you're giving them, and this is not supposed to be a pun, but it kind of is, more ammo? So like, oh, well, here's another reason why we want to take guns away, because it's suicides. Now it's just not mass shootings. Now we want guns. We want to take their guns away because they're killing themselves with it. I mean, I'm looking at it from a devil's advocate point of view, that if I wanted speaking after you, because I do some public speaking every once in a while still, if I'm like, okay, that's what he said. All right, how can I use this if I'm want to go a different route and I'm not in agreement with you? Which Mike, of course, you and I are on the same page. But do you find that like, man, I've got to be careful because they may be pulling that and using ammo against me off the stuff I'm saying? Or does that not happen? Do you, like you said, does it just open their eyes? And Jay, same thing, bro. This question's for both of you guys.
Yeah, Jay, you run in. I'm a little bit in the echo chamber sometime. Like I think you do more talking outside of the echo chamber than I do. How do you feel?
I feel like, again, Chris, as Mike mentioned, I feel like folks are just being intellectually dishonest when they attempt that. And furthermore, you know, that's almost like giving somebody more ammo whom isn't familiar with close quarter combat, right? You can you can use whatever tools necessary, but as it relates to really being able to go toe to toe, the dialogue, we can then have the conversation about that. Because if you want to talk about suicide and guns and lethal means, well, is it a firearm issue or is it a socioeconomic issue?
You're basically getting more tactical. You can have all the players, but I'm more tactical.
Let's talk about taxes.
Gotcha. And that's great, dude. Because I was like, man, because that kind of were like, man, if I was her, I would use that against him. But then you can destroy him because you can even go more tactic. You can even go down, and you said you want to go down that rabbit hole.
We can get as granular as you want to. We can get as granular as you want, because again, if we talk about suicide and the idea of feeling alone or feeling abandoned, or to the point referenced earlier, as though this feeling is the only feeling that I'm ever going to feel forever, that omnipresent truth didn't just pop up yesterday. There's a multitude of various factors. There are a myriad of things going on in that person's life, in that person's home, in that person's headspace, in that person's heart, in that person's family, at that person's job, that constitutes this feeling as though there is no other choice other than to kill myself. Or to unalive myself. I don't know how the censorship.
I never know with all the YouTube. I mean, if we get demonetized, we do whatever. But
he made me tingle saying that, man. Like, God, yeah, we're right. These are good hands here. It's like that's a great, because it makes perfect sense. And again, being well spoken like you guys are, I know two-way communities in great hands, man. It was amazing. No, you guys got great answers. No,
I do as well, and that's why I knew this would be good. And I guess the last thing I'll say, I mean, you guys are the professionals, but if anybody happens to be listening to this who is in that headspace, because and they are having a mental health crisis, I really do think there's stuff that you could do. Reach out to groups like Walk the Talk America. But even beyond that, man, I think as someone who's had issues with depression and got out of it, for one, as you said, you're not going to feel that way forever. But whether it's getting some exercise, if you're using drugs or alcohol, putting down the drugs and alcohol, putting depressants in your body is definitely going to make things worse. But I really do think it's great to have you guys on, because this is a resource that people are going to be able to use, because we are speaking to a lot of male gun owners, right? And that's who's predominantly having this issue. It's funny, before we started, you were saying that you're familiar with Evan Seinfeld, and we had him on, and we didn't talk about firearms, but the thing that he did address is it is predominantly males that are making up the suicides, and we have to do a better job of speaking with each other and preventing this, because it is a predominantly male problem, and of course, as you said, a predominantly male gun owner problem. So yeah, if we don't address this, then I think the government will, and they'll do it poorly.
Yeah, every negative outcome will be used against us, right? And I would like to tell the firearms community that's listening, like everyone that associates with it, this isn't about giving an inch. This isn't compromise, right? If we do it ourselves, then they can't make us do anything, because we're already better than them. We're already ahead of them. I'm super competitive. Always been that way in my life. Like every time I did something, even if I knew I wasn't going to lose, I tried to figure out a way where I could be the best at it. And I think I know this sounds crazy, but I believe that we could be the leaders in this space when it comes to mental health and resources, especially with firearms. Like people ask me all the time, why do you focus on firearms? Because I'm from the firearms community, right? Like if I worked in ropes, maybe I would have done something. I don't know, but I don't want to see people die. I don't want to see people in pain. But I will tell you this, as gun owners, we have ignored this problem for so long that I think it's come back to bite us. And I beg the gun owners out there, there is nothing wrong with having a better mental health and suicide prevention plan as part of your gun owning process, right?
Yeah.
So we're prepared all the time. Like we pride ourselves on all the classes we take, all the training we do, staying vigilant, thinking ahead. Like I know in my house, I have firearms securely staged all around this house because I got 2 daughters, so I have to have them. Even though they know guns, I have to have them locked up because it's not even them I worry about. Sometimes it's their friends, and I travel a lot. But I train actually retrieving those firearms. So I train as hard as I do retrieving my firearm from my safe as I do training with my firearm. So I'm pretty confident I could do it in my sleep. But a firearms plan. So when you get a firearms and you take a course, a CCW course or any course, we're going to beat in your head the safety rules, right? Like that's one thing that we all learn when we get a firearm, when we take a course. Second thing we usually learn about, especially when we get our CCW, is you can't just shoot somebody and think that you're going to life is going to be jolly and you're going to need a lawyer and you're going to go through hell, right? And that's ingrained in our heads. And I like to explain that to everybody outside of the gun industry because they think that we don't cover these things. But we do safety so much that when we watch movies, we actually look for the mistakes that these people make when they have their finger on the trigger, like with no trigger discipline, or they muzzle flash people. Like, wow, he just muzzle flashed that kid. Chris, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Like, man, it's like this movie sucks. I'm out. I can't watch the video.
But here's the third thing, right? Because most likely we will never need the lawyer from step 2 to defend us in a defensive shooting situation. Most likely we're going to turn the gun on ourselves. Like that's the biggest threat. The biggest threat is within. And there's nothing wrong with planning for that. So talk to your family members, have a plan with your kids to say, hey, or your spouse, right? Hey, if you ever see me in a time where I'm going into crisis, let's develop a plan for those firearms right now that I'm comfortable with you making the call on. That's all part of responsible gun ownership. And I think that will help, right? So it's like, I lose my job. My wife knows exactly what to do if she sees me going in a direction that she's not comfortable with and she's really worried about me. And we already have that agreement, right? It's a firearms plan for better mental health and suicide prevention. Step that stuff out too, because that's like literally being prepared. Like that's thinking ahead, which all firearms owners do. We love it. We love to brag about the training we do. Chris, right? Like people come off of your courses probably, and they're telling everybody what they just did with you.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, or they're saying, man, this guy sucks. I don't know. Go train with that jackass, man.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah,
but this is how we win in the end, though. This is doing it ourselves. Nobody else telling us what to do, and then being better at it than everybody else.
Well, to Mike's point, it's one of those things where in no other capacity do people consider the 2A community pussies, right? But I would hold a mirror to that if you're uncomfortable and unwilling to be honest with yourself about your temperament. If you're unwilling to look yourself in the mirror and acknowledge your impulsiveness. If you're unwilling to look in the mirror and acknowledge your rash decision-making processes. If you're unwilling to look in the mirror and just acknowledge the fact that you've had bad days and you've responded poorly to it sometimes, which we all do.
Yeah.
And something I'd like to highlight is actually how Mike and I met. Mike, would you mind referencing the fact that I told you that this was a suicide mission in itself?
Yeah, this is the greatest thing ever. So Maj Toure from Black Guns Matter is throwing this event with Guns for Everyone, Edgar out of Colorado. And they invited a bunch of people to it. And I was there. It was the very first time I talked about Walk Talk America. And Ian, before the show started, I was kind of telling you this story, but I didn't get to this part. But Jay was there, and I had just come off a meeting with Mental Health America, and they kept, Mental Health America kept saying, we take money from Big Pharma. Like she kept repeating that over and over again. And Jay was talking to me like, I saw you speak and I'd like to talk to you about some things. And I was so tired. I was just like, yeah, man, like, he's like, let's go get a beer. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's just like, I want to talk to you about like what you're doing and where you're going in the future and things like that. And I remember because you said, hey, when you were talking to that lady from Mental Health America, did she mention Big Pharma? And I was like, let's go get that beer, because it was crazy, because he kind of knew where it was going with the things I was saying. And you we went on this long walk. We got to this point where I was like, bro, are you gonna kill me? Remember that? I was like, we're in the middle of nowhere in Denver, like it's a quiet neighborhood. I was just like, but we went to go pick up a car. He had parked his car somewhere out there, and we're driving back, and it was cool because I remember, I didn't even know you then, and you said, it's going to be fun to watch you because you don't answer to anybody. And he's like, you can go on CNN or Fox, and he's like, it's going to be fun to watch you. And when I was in the White House, I had someone from the VA say the exact same thing you did, Jay. You just said it a year earlier. He's like, it's fun to watch you in those meetings because you don't have any red tape. Like, you just literally look at people and you're like, why can't you do it? That is so stupid. Like, people are dying, right? But the greatest part is he's pulling out, and he like opens up the window and he goes, yeah, but be careful, man. People die for this shit. People get killed. And drives off.
It's like,
And I'm like, what?
You're like, what the hell just happened?
What does that mean?
Did I just dodge my own death, man? What did that would kind of creep me out, man. And Jay, I don't know how big are you, Jay? You look like you're a pretty tall dude. Are you tall?
Yeah, I'm pretty sizable.
Yeah. And you're in Denver, where you walking down like Lodo or 16th Street, taking him down. Yeah, dude, you're gonna die, dude. You must have said something, and he's like, it's like,
no. He was referencing the fact that like I was going to be a disruptor, like a force disruptor in the community, right? So it's just kind of like,
we all
Yeah,
pharma.
If we think about the pipeline from preschool to prison for urban community members, right? They're members of every branch of everything that have a vested interest in ensuring that that pipeline is filled on both ends, right? Down to how much money on a daily basis these private prisons get to keep those bunkers intact. And so, again, it's a question of, for as much as there are members of the 2A community and the community at large who are unwilling to be emotionally honest with themselves, there's also an emotional intelligence that has some truth to it, where Mike attempting to get people to think for themselves is disruptive to an ecosystem that is very fluid. Those gears are very well greased, and in no capacity do they want to see someone of his stature, someone of his intent, and someone of his maturity with his background turn around and do anything more than just import guns. Now you want to start a nonprofit. Now you want to get people to start thinking for themselves. Now you want to create this discipline. Folks are so totally comfortable with status quo, where he is a threat. And when I wrote that window down to tell him that, it was important to me that he know you doing this is more than just trying to get people to not hurt themselves. By way of that merely and alone, you're a threat to the equivalent of the big pharmas.
Well, you're a threat to the bottom line. You really are, man. I mean, at least that's how they see it. I
Right.
don't. I see more people being different, bringing more people into it that would never want to be part of it before, because
and I think
you're violating stereotypes. You're destroying stereotypes that we need to do in the gun community. We need to destroy those stereotypes so we get everybody in. So the more people we have in, the stronger we are, from all different walks of life. But
For sure, man. And I think, just as someone who's worked in media as long as I have, man, it's just everything is an echo chamber. Everyone just wants to bring on people who agree with them. And with this podcast, what you guys are doing, I think it's important to be inclusive and bring people that you're going to disagree with, because that's how you change minds, not just talking to the people who agree with everything that you have to say.
hey, Ian, can I ask one more thing, dude? This is
Go
actually
for
my
it, man.
question.
Go for it.
I got one more thing. And I hate this. I don't like social media. I'm on it. Of course, we all say we
You're
don't
on
like
social
it,
media more than most
but
people.
I don't agree with, I don't like some of the people that I follow and some are even my friends that they post those videos, and they say training videos where they show somebody getting shot for real, or body cam footage of somebody getting stabbed, or I don't, and this is a simple question. We've gone all this intellectual stuff. Well, now I'm just bringing it down to something real simple. I don't like seeing those things on there. And I think they do affect mental health, and especially the kids too, Jay. Those kids are seeing real-time videos of a shootout or somebody violently dying. And honestly, the social media platforms, a lot of them are okay with that. I just see a lot of the views, and then I post something about me and my son because I'm a licensed CCW instructor out there, and I'm teaching him how to shoot, and I get restricted because I'm teaching about father-son time. But then I see that stuff on there, and that thing blows up. I don't think you're in agreement with it. I don't think that should be on there. I'm answering for you, but do you like to see this? Is that part of the 2A community? I think it makes the 2A community a lot worse. And how do we stop getting that, aside from just telling guys, stop putting that shit up? It's not training videos. If you want to show it in a training class that you're holding, okay, that's on you. But putting that out on social media and seeing people just get, for real, we're watching real murders, real deaths on social media, and it's out there. They're not pulling it down. How do we stop that? Or are you guys for it? Maybe you're for it. I don't think so.
No, this is the greatest thing because Jay doesn't do social media. He
Oh,
doesn't.
that's freaking, see, that's probably what you need right there. Right there. So
Jay's like, get off
got
social
no-
media.
I got no Instagram. I got no Twitter. I got no
there you go.
TikTok.
I'm sort of in the same boat as you. I just have it for Battle Line. I have
He's excused. He has it, man.
no, but I mean,
Jay
I use
doesn't
it.
have
I don't
it.
have it
Like
for
there's
my-
no like.
Yeah.
All right, then the
But no, I
question for
agree.
Jay:
You know,
how much better is your life, Jay, not having it? Then just say that. Let's end it with that right there, because that is. I mean, today's what's it called, Ian? When you're watching it, you're getting your fix on
Dopamine.
the
Yeah.
dopamine drops.
Serotonin.
Yeah, all that is it. I think it makes it so much worse. And the gun community, I think we do ourselves a disservice by posting a lot of the shit that we post out there. But Jay, you don't have social media, so I don't know. Maybe you guys can't answer that question, or maybe Jay, I don't know. I just want to
Jay
throw
the
that out
unicorn.
there because you guys, yeah. Well,
What do you say, Mike? I don't know because I'm not in the metaverse, so I don't know.
that's
Listen, if you get your algorithm the wrong way, you're going to see a lot of negative stuff. I will tell
Yeah.
people this. I changed my algorithm on purpose because my marketing guy, I kept looking at really dark stuff in terms of like that type of stuff. And then I was watching animals kill animals like lions, and it kept feeding me this stuff. And I remember my guy's like, hey, just start liking like pictures of kittens and puppies and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
no
actually it changed my algorithm, like to where I stopped getting fed that stuff. So I think you got to be emotionally intelligent to kind of understand, because like, let's say you're a staunch Republican, or you're like a super liberal, right? Progressive, and you keep watching the opposite, the polar opposite of you, you're going to get angry, and you're
Yeah.
going to wake up every day thinking like, this is the way life is. I
Yeah.
agree with you. I think violence, showing people violence all the time isn't the answer. I think it does have an effect. I mean, like, obviously I grew up watching, horror movies and things like that. And, I at least had a single mom. I was raised by a single mom. She's able to talk to me about what's real and what's not. You know what I mean? I think, but violence in the wrong hands with a kid that doesn't have any direction, I mean, that's dangerous. Once again, how do you stop it? That genie's been out of the bottle for a while now. I mean,
and now we can't do anything about. I just wanted your take on it, because that's a lot of the gun community. They love that shit, and you're right on the algorithms. I saw that. I don't see it too much anymore, except for, well, no, I don't even see. I was going to say his name. I don't want to say his name because I don't really like his stuff anymore. He's still a friend. But you're right, that algorithm, I guess I just never thought of that, because I like flowers. I like mountains. I like the prayer. I mean, I am a Christian. I get more God. I get more prayers in there. So I guess that's a way to combat it. But it comes down again to what you guys talk about, personal responsibility. I've got to do that.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
swear
let
though,
you-
I like, for at least for me, man, I just go on there, I post or promoting with Battle Line, and then I kind of get the fuck off for the most part. But
they duck in and out.
yeah, I think that's
Duck
the
in.
best way to do it. I've been very over the whole social media thing for a while, and I only use it for Battle Line, really. For the, I mean, by and large. But anyway, but I should point out that Walk the Talk USA is on social media. So Walk the Talk America, I should
But
say.
it's not Jay.
So,
But Jay doesn't mess
but
with
Jay
it.
is not,
doesn't
so-
mess with it.
You will
Walk
not
the
find Jay.
Talk
Jay's a
America.
unicorn.
WalkTheTalkAmerica.org, on Instagram and X at Walk the Talk US. If you want to follow Michael is on social media. So at Michael_Sidini on Instagram, at Mike Sidini on X. And actually, you know what I was going to say, Jay, what's going on? Are you like on the run or something? How we've been ducking in and out this whole Zoom? Is everything all right, bro?
I'm quite. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've changed locations 4 times.
That's what I'm saying. He's
Yeah,
like,
I was like,
that-
what's going on here, man?
That's
Is,
Kaiser
someone
Sose.
following you?
Kaiser Sose is on your show.
Kaiser. That's Kaiser. Holy, I haven't heard that forever, man. Oh my. So now we know who Kaiser Sose is. Everybody.
Yeah, it's Jay. Turns out it's Jay.
It's Jay. Well,
Cat's out of the bag.
I
Cat's
can't
out
say
of
I'm
the bag.
disappointed. I thought you'd look a lot, man, meaner than you do. I didn't think you'd be smiling all the time. But no, it's awesome to have you on. You guys are, yeah, and you're doing the right things. I agree with everything you're doing, man. And
Yeah.
and if I can help in any way, or you ever want to do, like I said, just even come out and bring some people out. We can do some therapy out here where I live. I've got a little range out here. I'm more than happy to bring you guys out, you know, as long as we got to keep the numbers manageable, but yeah, I'm down with it, because I fully agree with what you guys are doing. So thank you. And thanks for doing it and sticking your neck out there. Cause I don't know how you do it, Michael, with the people that you're around. That's tough. You've got to have some really strong interpersonal skills and the ability to remain calm without getting agitated quickly. And that's admirable. Jay, you're just cool, dude. You're just like,
Yes.
I'm good. So great job, guys. Really. And this was a great podcast. I really love talking to you guys. This was awesome.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Battleline Podcast. But we're always posting new content on social media. Follow us on Instagram at Battleline Podcast and on Twitter at Battleline Pod. That's an order. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes up every Tuesday. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. Believe in yourself. Face all challenges head on. And as always, never quit.